Good evening, good afternoon. Hello everybody. It's great to have you with us here at the Ploughing Championships in the SETU tent. The weather has stayed fine so far. That's the most important thing. We're just here for the next half an hour or so to have a discussion, I suppose, on a massive development for Gaelic football. In the past 12 months, new rules came in, led by Jim Gavin, who's seeking the presidency of Ireland, helped along by Johnny Bradley, one of his right-hand men. And I suppose for players and coaches like Nigel Dunne, it's been an unbelievable shift in the sport that we once knew. So, just before I give you an overview of the year that was, and maybe the way the game is now, just this man on my right-hand side, Johnny Bradley is the project lead for the GEA's Games Intelligence Unit. Johnny has spent the last year in a bunker with all the stats, all the data, kind of tabulating everything and making sure that all the information about the rule changes came back to Jim Gavin, came back to the county boards, came back to the managers as well. And Johnny works in SETU. He's the program director for the Masters in Sports Performance Analysis. All through his career, he's supported elite athletes, heavily involved with his club Glen up in Derry. And Johnny, it's great to have you. Very, very welcome. So beside Johnny, we have the great footballer that is Nigel Dunne. Nigel gave a decade and a half playing with Offaly. He's the current Offaly minor coach. They had great success this year as well. Mickey Hart took over. One of the first calls he made was to bring Nigel back, and Nigel came back and played this year, but I think injuries had taken their toll over the years, Nigel, and at least you got a chance to play under the new rules as well. So before I chat to the lads, I just want to throw a few things out at you. Last year, about 850,000 people went to games to see Gaelic football at Intercounty. This time around, well over 1 million people. That's a difference maybe of about 200,000 supporters in 1 year. A 25% jump in the National League despite the bad weather. So you got to ask yourself, why is all that? The GEA are smiling as well. They went from about 80 million in gate receipts up to 20 million. And at the end of the year then, or maybe midsummer, Jarlath Burns, the president, he revealed that attendances for the group stages of the football championship were up 21%. So that's all the data, that's all the stats. Johnny, before we talk about the year that was, can you just maybe talk to me about Gaelic football? We were having a chat here for RTÉ last winter. I was up in Derry, I covered a Derry club game. It was maybe 49 minutes gone and it was 6 points to 5. The frostbite had taken over at this stage. I was losing the will to live. And I did say to the panel, like, we can't keep going on like this. What were your thoughts on the way Gaelic football was up to this year?
I remember watching that game, and Damian, I felt very sorry for you up in Owenbeg that night, I have to say. But I think over the last 3 or 4 years, there was a consensus with everybody that something had to be done. You know, the game had got very possession-based, lots of short kickouts, you know, lots of teams dropping back, maybe conceding kickouts as well. And, you know, we were going through games sometimes with not a lot of scores, not a lot of points, maybe at times. And then on the flip side, there was some games in the inter-county season that were very one-way as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that you're looking at. You want not only the players to really, really enjoy playing and want to play at that level, but also people to watch the game, enjoy it, to go to a match and not knowing, geez, it could go this way or it could go that way. So definitely this year, from my perspective, I've been watching a lot more games this year that I want to watch rather than all the way around.
And as we go along, folks, if you have any questions, just raise the hand and we'll get to you as well, because it's very important to get feedback from the floor. Nigel, your perspective. You played football all your life. Apart from your family, football is your main obsession. What did you make of the last few years and the difference just since the new rules came into play?
Yeah, for me, from my player's hat on, first of all, the biggest change was the energy in the players coming to training. Like, there used to be a serious, I don't want to use this term too lightly, but nearly depression over players when they be talking about defensive shape and tuck in and track and runs. There was a little bit more enjoyment in the attitude of players coming to training, first and foremost. because I think everyone was somewhat naive to what was ahead of them. So there was that naivety created a bit of what would you call it? A bit more freedom in everything everyone was doing. But so from a joy point of view, players were coming in smiling, and that was my experience in Offaly. For the 2 or 3 years before that, it felt like everything was forced. But this year there was definitely smiles on lads' faces, and I don't think that was just Mickey Hart coming through the doors.
Actually, just when you got the call, you were more or less retired, more or less, Nigel, when Mickey Hart came in to take that job. So just what changed in your thinking then before you decided to come back in to play with Offaly this year?
Well, I was part of the first sandbox game in Mullingar, and it was brilliant. It was chaos. It was goals galore, forwards had all the space in the world. So I foolishly thought, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to stand inside and I'm going to bag a load of goals. And I was thinking, I won't have to track runs, I can stand close to goals. It took me about 2 minutes of the first training session to realise I'm way too old for this. But I really enjoyed it. I really learnt loads off Mickey and that. But what drew me back was I was thinking of managing, coaching long term, and I wanted experience as a player to see what it was like on the field of play that I could bring then to the coach's room in the future. So my motivation was probably selfish in many ways. I wanted to learn for the next step in my career.
Straight away, Johnny, what were the early signs coming through? So Johnny's job was to basically go into a bunker, go into a lab, take in all the data from every single game, more scoring chances, more tackles, more runs, all that sort of stuff. What was the early picture coming through to you, Johnny, from week 1, week 2?
I suppose the GA approached SETU to we have a Masters in Sports Performance Analysis at SETU. It was one of the first here in the country, and I think possibly the only one here. So I lead that up, and the GA came to us and said, look, is there a possibility here where the FRC are looking to analyse the games to see the impact of the rules? So this year the GIU was set up and we analysed 212 games.
212 games?
Throughout the season. So that's probably the most comprehensive analysis done of the championship ever in one season. So that's 112 National League games, Provincial Championship, Sam Maguire and Talcum Cup. But I suppose it was very much a learning curve for us as well. The FRC at that point were established for about a year, so the sandbox games had been on. They recommended the rules and the rule enhancements, and it was up to us to comprehensively analyse the game. So it was very important for us not to be swayed and be biased. We wanted to, use the data to inform the FRC and the general public rather than to drive it. But early signs were very much people were getting used to it in terms of the fouls, the 3v3 at that time, the descent, the delays of the free kicks. Those were very common in the early parts. And then probably the biggest sea change this year for everybody was in terms of the kickouts. From going from it being 50-50 in terms of short versus long, and whenever I say long, it's over the 45. Like in the 2014, it was most of the time it was 50-50. Now in this year, it's 21, around 20% short, and the rest are going long. So teams from an attacking perspective, whenever the goalkeeper is looking and teams are setting up, they had their kickouts. Maybe the team was conceding, maybe a team was putting a press on. But this year it was completely out the window. So you could see teams really trying to adjust, and especially in the National League. You can see it now, even the club championships, the wind and the weather had such an effect as well.
Yeah, because at one stage you could be leading by 15 points at half time, then it wouldn't mean anything because the wind is going to turn around. Just as regards the implementation of the rules, Nigel, there was a lot of rule changes week to week in the league, a lot of tweaks. Did you think that it settled in fairly well? Did you think it settled in quickly enough?
I did, yeah. It's just on when you're talking about a 10-15 point lead not being enough. I remember Park Talchin, we were playing Meath in the first round of the Leinster Championship and we were 10 points up. Now there was a gale, but everyone was saying that's not enough. Like the 2-pointer has somewhat ensured that a game's never over, and with the elements in Ireland that doubles down on that. Yeah, I thought the rules seamlessly were applied. I think they nearly became self-policed. Like, players were very good at kind of understanding there's a culture shift. From an Offaly point of view, we were a little disappointed where I think the goalie having to stay in the goals and not get involved in the play is the right thing for the game. It hindered us with Offaly because Paddy Dunnican, who's just across the road there, was very effective at it. He's an outfield player for my own club. So, I thought they settled in really, really well.
The likes of Mickey Hart has his own managerial style, Nigel. Do you think it took him long to switch? I suppose he was always a bit of a counter-attacking coach as well, in fairness.
Yeah, and what I was surprised with Mickey, and I was waiting to see what's this man's philosophy on the game, and he kept encouraging kicking. And now we didn't do it, whether we didn't have the ability to do it or whatnot, but his thing was that he wanted the first phase of possession after a turnover, do you know, when you're in your defensive setup, to be a kick pass. And if you look through, and I don't know what the stats say on this, Johnny, but it feels like we're still ingrained to go sideways with a hand pass. Like, when the ball's turned over, is the kick on initially? Like that 40-metre, 50-metre kick. Mickey Hart was encouraging us to do that. You've seen against Kildare in the league final, it came to fruition on a couple of occasions, but I think throughout the championship this year, I think there was a reluctance to kick on the first phase of transition, and even when you're switching play. And I hear Eamon Fitzmaurice refer to it a lot. It's hand pass, rather than a kick across the field. It's like the game is now about more risk taking, and that will be in the nature of it.
I'll come to you in the All-Ireland final for a second, but have we got a question from the floor?
Do you think the new rules are going to take away from the life expectancy of speed?
Do you think, I'm trying to tell my young lad to turn off the noise on his phone as well. Do you think that the new rules have taken away from the life expectancy of an inter-county footballer? Do you mean in terms of the constant running and the wear and tear in the body?
The little time that was played inter-county football compared to I see this year there are a number of 400 players that the old system would have gone on a lot more, would have caught out this year.
Do you mean Nigel?
No, but I completely agree with you. To be honest, I lacked pace my whole career, and the way the old game was allowed me to play at inter-county level because everything was slow. I had a decent head on my shoulders. You could come out and kind of, I don't want to use the word bluff your way through, but you could get handy ball and just keep the play going. I think careers will be much shorter. I think it.
Turn around, ball is big, it's gone, and if you're not this one, you won't be able to cope with the length of time that your body won't be able to cope with it now.
I completely agree. I think it could be. It could become a game of genetics now. The best athletes. Hopefully, there's still room for the David Cliffords of this world, but I do agree. I think inter-county careers will be shorter.
Yeah. There is one thing, like a load of games I left this year, the inside forwards were back outside doing extra runs because they hadn't clocked up the same mileage as they would in the old rules. Does that make sense, Johnny?
It does, and if you from looking at the information and talking to counties, overall in terms of total distance, it hasn't changed a lot for some positions, and in fact for some positions it has went down. But for the inside line and for the full backs, that high intensity running is there because they have to stay up. They're probably trying to create space as well, and also because of the new rules with the solo and go. Whereas before, if I had the ball and I was overcarried, I would have held on Nigel. Within 20 seconds, referee maybe would have ticked. Now Nigel can pick up the ball and go. So it's a very much up and down game now, that real transition. One of the other things I would say though, in terms of the life expectancy of an inter-county player, with the split season and the demands on the club and the inter-county players have. I was part of the management team for Waddy Graham's Glen. We were lucky enough to win All-Ireland 2 years ago. And I can see likes of like Conor Glass and Ethan Doherty, who were having long seasons with Derry, were coming back, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're in the club. And we were thankfully very successful, and we were going right through to January. So I know when Mickey was with Derry, it was a real how can we manage these boys? So I think it is a mixture of the rules, but also the professional approach as well.
And do you think injuries is more prevalent now in this game than it was in the older system?
I think the injuries are part and parcel of all of this invasion game. It's very explosive. Yeah, look, I'm
Soft
not sure.
tissue injuries, Johnny.
Hamstrings, hip flexors. Nigel will be able to tell you more, but definitely because it is so. In terms of looking back and looking at the game 10 years ago, where it was in terms of physical nature to where it is now, yes, it runs more, so there's more demands in the body.
Can we fast forward a mile, like the All-Ireland final, Nigel? I presume you enjoyed it. I don't know where you're from, but just the two approaches, the Kerry approach and the Donegal approach. Was there a big contrast there? Were the setups in different eras, or what did you think?
Johnny might disagree. I'm just looking at it from the naked eye, I suppose. Like, to me, in the first half, Donegal were really good. Their shot efficiency it seemed excellent. Kerry have a freak in David Clifford, and I know I don't want to be too simplistic about it, but if you have somebody that can be not involved in the game, get 3 kicks and end up at 6 points, or he had 7 at half time, like, don't underestimate how much that knocks the stuffing out of a team. We can talk about systems all we want, and both teams were fairly compact and wanted to somewhat do the same thing, but Kerry's ability to kick 2-pointers. Donegal stuck to the process of trying to work it closer to goal, and they probably, like, they were kicking 2-pointers earlier on in the league. They needed to hold Kerry. I laughed at Paul Geaney saying that earlier in the year that Kerry weren't focused on 2-pointers. Did you hear that interview? And yeah, when it comes down to it, the cute Kerry hoorism, they were delivering when it mattered. So,
just in that game alone, Johnny, like the foot passing from a Kerry point of view was incredible. But that 2-pointer that Clifford got on the stroke at half time, how well rehearsed was that move? He didn't even look for the ball for the first minute and a half of that move.
No, I think they were. I think the point you're talking about is that one just before half time. So they had the possession. And they had, it was maybe about a minute and a half to go to the whistle, and they kept the ball, and you could see David Clifford playing that right half or left half forward position, and then he just came on to the ball, and back. I was actually kind of nearly level with it at Croke Park, and you could it's like slow motion. You could see, he's going to come and get it. But ironically, Kerry weren't scoring the 2-pointers at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And as you got to, and Jack O'Connor said, once you get to Croke Park, it's a different, and that's an important consideration to have. If you go to Celtic Park, it's a very tight field. It's, Croke Park's 88 metres wide, Celtic Park's 84 metres wide, right. And the distance between the 265s isn't as much. So that has an element to play. But when you talk about the new rules, Donegal were very disciplined throughout the year, I felt. Not very many breaches and all that. And as you get, I suppose it's very challenging now for inter-county teams because you have a National League, then you've got the Provincial Championship, and then you're into that All-Ireland, whether it's the Sam Maguire and Telchin. So that is really difficult.
And up until that day, their year was quite good, and they managed it very, very well. Go back to the Leinster final for a second, Nigel. The way that Louth managed that ball in the last 10 minutes to play the hooter out. Again, they maximised the new rules to the limit. What did you make of that passage of play? Meath couldn't get near them, couldn't get a hand on the ball. So was it excellent coaching from a Louth perspective, or what do you think of that hooter system in that regard?
Yeah, and the new rules probably wanted to get rid of plays like that. You think of Dublin against Mayo a few years ago in the All-Ireland final, something similar when they went back to Cluxton and they kept onto the ball. I enjoyed that from a personal point of view. I thought because of the pressure of that moment, it was actually incredible skill by Louth to do what they done. I watched them against Kildare and Tullamore. They actually did the same thing. You could argue that it's not good for the game, but once it's in small pockets like that and it's not the norm, I think we can all appreciate the brilliance of it.
Solo and go, was that the most impressive thing to come out of it? I know you had to work on the project all year, but what was the feedback to you from coaches and players? Was it the solo and go seemed to settle in straight away, Johnny?
Yeah, it was probably the biggest. Everybody loved it in terms of spectators and in terms of coaches, referees as well. I think there was I just remember watching and analysing the Tyrone Mayo game, and it was before they changed the goalkeeper rule, that Niall Morgan went forward. He was on the Mayo 21. He lost the ball, and the first thing he did was foul the Mayo. Then he got fouled. He couldn't grab him and hold him. He had to let him go. He ran up the field. He tried to do it again. Foul, let him go. And then if you do foul within that 8 metres, it's 50 yards up. So therein lies the real beauty of that rule. You're probably talking about 8 or 9 per game that we found in the game. And so, but from the other perspective, from the referees and from talking to the referees, they loved it because there was no time for that dissent.
Yeah.
Why did you give that free? That was a big one. And also, it just opens that you get ahead of the ball, and for players like Nigel who was inside, it gets them past that line of defence, doesn't let the team get back, and allows, hopefully in the future, those more big long balls inside.
Again, folks, anybody questions, just put your hand up. We'll get down to you. But David Clifford, the year he had, like, obviously he's class, and he's one of the greatest ever, if not the greatest ever at this stage. But did the new rules allow him to absolutely explode again this season? And you could maybe see his body language was entirely different in 2025.
Yeah, he looked completely rejuvenated. Like he looked to be enjoying his football. There was a spark to him. I don't know if that was the new rules or he was coming to the realisation that he's 27 in January, won All Ireland in Kerry, and that just won't cut the mustard. But whatever the reason, he did look to have the bit between his teeth. What I love about him is he celebrates his scores. What became the norm was the Dubs scoring brilliant individual goals and walking out like they've heard their cat died. So, it was refreshing to see that.
Would you go along with that? Like his unique talents, especially with 2-pointers, you could see they were playing a direct style of play from the first league game. They were kicking that ball into the full forward line. He suddenly didn't have 5 and 6 players to beat. Not that he couldn't do that anyway, but he had freedom to express himself. And is that what the game is all about, Johnny? To even from under 12 onwards, under 6 onwards, get out and express yourself and enjoy the game.
Yeah, I think it's about being progressive. It's about making sure that you play in that front foot. Like even underage, I've got 2 boys, one under 11s or under 12s and under 8s. It's about that first 4 steps first 4 steps forward we're talking about. And you're talking about the All-Ireland final. I think Kerry had double kick passes than Donegal in the final.
Okay.
Not saying that was the reason why they won, but definitely if there's one team, you could hear from everybody at the beginning of the year, if there's one team that suits the rules, it's Kerry. They've got a fantastic keeper in terms of the kickouts as well. I thought the kickout battle was really, really interesting in the Ireland final. The way Patton, they overloaded to one side, Kerry dealt with it. They kept, they overloaded Joe Connors on that side, really isolated him. And it's such a platform now. But probably the most interesting aspect is now, it's because teams have to go long. Teams are pressing that kick out really hard. So I think in the future, well, these rules have to be passed to Congress too.
Yeah.
But it'll be really interesting to see the developments of how teams win their own kickouts. Can they shift people around, create more space? And I think that was something I felt that throughout the season and into the championship, teams did find pockets in that number 5 position, maybe that right-hand side of the midfield as well. I think in time, hopefully, you'll see more of that.
What's it like from a coaching perspective then? So Nigel coached the Offaly Minors this year and they had fine success as well. Did you have to study lots of videos to find those pockets that Johnny's talking about under the new rules? And how did the youngsters adapt to it, Nigel?
It is really difficult to find the pockets. I would have tried to base our kick-out routines on Conor Laverty's down in getting kind of, we spoke about genetics earlier, the really quick players in a position where if they gained a 3-yard separation, Jack Ryan was to give it. But to be honest, more often than not, we still had to go long. But we were actively trying to go short. I think the next stage of the whole kickouts is there is going to be more variation inevitably because, what did you say, Johnny? 80% now going long.
Yeah.
Coaches do not like that element of losing control.
Spectator does though.
No.
Yeah, the spectator does, and that's what the whole point of it is. But there'll always be coaches and managers trying to upset the cartel. So I can't wait to see what way it goes.
And just on that, Damian, when we say it's all long, there's 20. Not to be statty here, but within it's very hard when the job I do. But within the 45, you're talking about 20% of the kickouts there. But from looking at it, the pockets are there. Depends on how the other team's set up. But then it's that mid kick out. There's 30%, and I think that's the pocket that people can really go for in terms attack for, because everybody's kind of expected to go really long, and they're defending the corner glasses or the, whoever it is, the big midfielders, and then it's these half forwards coming into that wee pocket as well.
So they say in politics a week is a long time. It's a long time in sport as well. In October the 4th, then all this goes before a special congress. It seems to be overwhelming universally around, Nigel. But Johnny, is there anything that you feel will be tweaked? There's been a couple of issues highlighted already.
Well, I think overall, from getting the feedback from the referees and from the general public, the rules have been an overwhelmingly positive development. In the FRC report that was published a few weeks ago, there was recommendations at the back. So we were talking about the Louth and Meath provincial final. They've a recommendation in there that you can't once you go past the halfway, you can't go back over.
Okay.
Things like that. The hooter, then they've recommended that when the hooter is blown, if the ball's in flight,
The end of play.
at the end of play. Yeah. So things like that they have put recommendations in. But here it's Congress, the debate is there, that's where it can be debated as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
Nigel, is it too easy to say that these rules have saved Gaelic football?
No, I think it has. I think the whole narrative around Gaelic football is refreshing. I think the talk around Gaelic football was always the state of Gaelic football, how bad it was. You'd go to any club or county game around the country and the three of us could sit, have a full-blown conversation, and all we would have missed was 15 sideways hand passes. Now you actually have to be engaged in the product in front of you. So that in itself, they've been an overwhelming success. They've definitely saved the game. In terms of where they go to next, they're not going back. I could see the value in that. Maybe a solo and go from the sideline I've seen. I think that would be a very good one as well. Look, I wouldn't taper too much with it now. I think we've stumbled upon a really good product, and maybe let it settle in for 2 or 3 years. But from a coach and a player's point of view, I wish these rules came in 15 years ago. I genuinely do. I think they would have been brilliant to play in when you were able to play.
Again, folks, any questions, throw your hands up. I'm just wondering, would you agree with that? Where to next is the question, but I think, is it important to let it settle a bit now?
I think so. Like, there has been a lot of change in the last year, and I think we want to see what comes of that. I think the FRC have recommended an expert advisory panel to kind of work with the Standing Rules Committee and the GAA in terms of to monitor the rules and see how it goes. I think it'll be really interesting to see. But like, for example, I was at an under 11 blitz. I was telling you, they were solo on goals and everything like that, and it was brilliant to see. And it was just that real positivity around it. I think that's something that's really, really good.
I wondered about that, going back to club level. Sometimes you don't even have linesmen, never mind umpires. And I wondered how the club referees at underage especially would cope with the 2-pointers. I thought it'd be a bit of carnage. There has been in places, but it hasn't been too bad, has it?
It hasn't been too bad. There was a clip doing the rounds on social media, was in the Wexford Championship, where they were a good bit in. But in general, it's been fine, and it's like in club games, what I found, especially in the league games just before the championship started, like the referee has missed the 3 ops, but he's also missed Johnny giving me a dig and ribs off the ball over the years. Sometimes it is what it is. It's for the better good. So that's inevitably going to happen.
Right. As we wind down the conversation, then, can you just recap, Johnny? Like the work was when Jim Gavin took over, and obviously he's bigger fish to fry now, and. You might invite myself and Nigel for afternoon tea in Oris and Outron if you take care of us. But was he relentless from the moment he took charge of that committee? After Congress finished last year, he started working the very next day. And just how much work went into that?
An incredible amount. He's a very impressive individual. And if you're in his company, you can very easily understand why Dublin were so successful. And from being involved with Malachi O'Rourke at Glen, and he was part of the FRC at that time, the amount of work that went into the sandbox games and the recommendations, and But one thing I would say about the FRC from dealing with them, they have a fantastic blend in that FRC of managers, coaches, referees, people that are involved with various committees. So in contact with them and dealing with them, it is a very impressive blend of people that are in RFFC, and you could tell that they have the best interests of the game in heart, and you can see that with the recommendation. No decision is made very quickly. They're taking feedback all the time. So in terms of the FRC and the GAA, they put a lot of work into it now, definitely did.
Kind of a final thing, Nigel. Are you surprised, and your day job is Games Promotion Officer with Offaly County Board, are you surprised how quickly the whole thing came into play? Usually, as Johnny says, there's committees, there's structures, it takes a while to get all this passed, but he came in and the whole thing flew.
Yeah, it's a testament. Like I know there's loads of brilliant people involved. It is a testament to Jim's ability to bring a group of people together and to achieve a common goal. It's probably why he'll be the next. It's mad to say president of Ireland, but it's.
Well, there's other candidates as well. I have to say that too, you know. But he made this committee sing like from day one.
Yeah, he did. Look, it seems to me like there's an aura around him. I remember in the sandbox games, it was only a small thing, but he wouldn't know any of us from Adam. He came in and shook hands and said, "How are you, Nigel?" And straight away, you'd say up and go, "Jim Gavin knows who I am," do you know. But he knew every player, and there was a lot of these players we wouldn't be overly well known. Do you know what I mean? So it was very impressive the way he handled things.
So just to pick up on something, you only wish that you were starting your career now, that you had another 15 years of this.
Yeah, because it seems like it's a footballer's dream. There's more room to express yourself. There's more. And for the first 5 or 6 years of my intercounty career, recycle and possession were the main teams of every team meeting. But now you're being encouraged to take shots from further out, and that'd be right down my street.
What about the Glen, Johnny? Or the club players, did they had a certain way of playing? Did they change tack fairly quickly with it?
No, I think they adopted well. Every team plays differently and depends on the opposition. Glen have got a lot of quality players, a lot of inter-county players that have played the game, and even being at the club games, you could see the things they're trying to do. But like, just to follow on from that question, like, you've got a forward there, an inside man that has got space. You've got a defender who loves the 1v1 defending. You've got midfielders that have the ability to go and contest kickouts, high fielding, the breaks. So they're all there. There have been frustrations throughout the year, and there's no doubt about it. And one thing I would say about the new rules, there's still going to be poor games. It's not that the rules are going to absolutely transform every single game. There is still going to be poor. That's just the nature of invasion sport. And like, geez, if you look at some of the soccer games, you go out and have a cup of tea and come back and have a wee sleep, and then nothing's changed.
Is there any county you see coming next year, Nigel, based on this year's displays?
Well, the history of the GAA is, like, Kerry and Dublin have shared how many All-Irelands, so they're going to be there regardless of styles or whatever. It seemed by the end of the year that Johnny's home county, Derry, had turned the corner in terms of performance and attitude. Yeah. And it's funny, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but when I think of a player that possibly needs to adapt to the modern way, it's actually Shane McGuigan. I think he constantly plays in the old style of coming on loops. If he offers himself up as more as a ball winner and a kick and try for Derry, I think they can't go further down than where they were. I think their trajectory will go up. I think they have Kiermina back. I think they have a good management team in place. I'm going to say Derry for Ulster champions.
Okay. Any questions from the floor, guys, before we wrap it up? Would you mind giving a round of applause to Nigel and Johnny for their observations so far? And thank you very much for listening. And it was a great year for Gaelic football. On October the 4th, then all this goes to Special Congress to see will it get into the permanent rule book in the GAA. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.